911 calls. They come in at all hours, piercing the silence of the night or interrupting the bustle of the day. Each ring could mean anything: a simple question, a desperate plea, or a life hanging in the balance. Some are routine, a fender bender, a minor injury. These are the calls that fade quickly, handled with practiced efficiency, leaving little trace behind. But others stick with you, echoing in the quiet hours long after the call is ended. They linger in the mind, replaying in the stillness, impossible to forget. These are the calls filled with raw fear, where life hangs by a thread. The voices on the other end tremble, sometimes barely able to speak, and the weight of their fear is almost tangible. The dispatcher? They're the calm voice in the storm, hearing things most of us can't imagine. They must listen, interpret, and act, often in seconds, while keeping their own emotions in check. This is a story about one such call, a call that started like many others, with a trembling voice in the dark. The fear in that voice was unmistakable, and it set off a chain of events no one could have predicted. It seemed like the worst kind of call, the kind that haunts communities and leaves scars that last for years. Neighbors gathered, sirens wailed, and the sense of dread was overwhelming. But this call had a twist no one saw coming. What began as a nightmare slowly unraveled into something entirely unexpected. It reminds us that fear is powerful, and sometimes, what we fear most isn't what it appears to be. Our minds can play tricks, especially when adrenaline is high and details are unclear. The details of this call are etched in memory, not for violence but for a profound misunderstanding. It was a lesson in how easily confusion can escalate and how quickly assumptions can take hold. It began on a quiet night, until the phone rang. The world outside was still, but inside the dispatch center, everything changed in an instant. A small voice spoke, words that sent a chill down the spine of a seasoned operator. The fear in that voice was unmistakable, and every instinct said this was urgent. This call became famous, not for horror, but for its lesson in perception. It was talked about in newsrooms and training sessions, a reminder of how easily things can be misunderstood. It showed how easily we can be misled, especially when emotions run high. Even the most experienced can be caught off guard by the unexpected. And it highlights the incredible pressure on 911 operators to make sense of chaos. Their job is to find clarity in confusion, to bring calm to panic, and to never let fear cloud their judgment. Meet Sarah, a veteran 911 dispatcher. Years on the night shift. She thought she'd heard it all: disputes, heart attacks, fires. Her calm, steady voice was a lifeline in the darkness. Tonight, the calls had been steady, nothing unusual. The clock ticked past midnight in the quiet dispatch center. Sarah sipped her lukewarm coffee, stretching in her chair. She hoped for a quiet end, but trouble rarely kept to a schedule. Suddenly, a new call lit up her console. Line 1. She took a breath, cleared her throat. 911, what's your emergency? Her voice was professional, but always ready for anything. The connection was fuzzy, faint breathing. Is someone there? 911, can you hear me? Sarah repeated, gentle but firm. Sometimes callers were too afraid to speak. She had to be patient, ready for anything, absolutely anything. Then a tiny whimper, a child's voice full of fear. Sarah's training kicked in. Yes, I can hear you, what's happening? The child sounded like he was hiding. There's someone in my house, the boy whispered. Someone bad. Sarah's heart rate quickened, but her voice stayed calm. Okay, honey, I'm here to help. Can you tell me your name? Leo, he whispered. Sarah typed quickly. Leo, young male, possible home invasion. Leo, where are you right now? Are you safe? I'm under my bed. I heard noises, scary noises. Sarah could hear his ragged breathing, the terror in his voice. She imagined him small, alone, hiding in the dark. You're doing great, Leo. You're very brave, Sarah reassured him. Are your parents home? She asked, moving to the next crucial question. Every second counted. The information was critical for the officers. Sarah needed to keep him calm and talking. The nightmare scenario was unfolding. No, Leo whispered, his voice cracking. They're gone. Sarah's mind raced. Gone where, Leo? Do you know where they went? Leo didn't answer, just frightened whimpers. Faint sounds in the background, a rustling, a soft thud. Leo, can you still hear me? What kind of noises are you hearing? Big, Leo whispered. The person is big and hairy. Hairy? Children describe things differently, but Sarah didn't dismiss it. I saw a shadow, Leo continued. It was in the kitchen, making noises, growling noises. Growling? Now Sarah was truly puzzled. a big, hairy intruder making growling noises. This sounded increasingly bizarre and dangerous. The picture Leo painted was grim. Sarah noted every detail, even the strange ones. Was it a person, an animal, or just fear distorting reality? She relayed the information to officers. Every second, the tension grew. The unknown was the scariest part. Sarah had to keep Leo safe. Sarah was already dispatching police as she spoke to Leo. The address was confirmed. Officers en route, minutes that felt like an eternity. Her job, keep Leo on the line, keep him safe, gather more intel. The description was unsettling. Big, hairy, growling. Was it an animal, or was Leo's imagination running wild? "Leo, is the person still in the kitchen?" Sarah asked. "I think so. I hear eating." Eating? The intruder was in the kitchen eating? Burglars usually didn't stop for a snack. Sarah relayed big, hairy, growling now eating in the kitchen. Officers would need to be ready for anything. "Leo, what do you mean eating?" Sarah asked, "like crunching and smacking, loud." He paused. "And it smells funny." "What kind of funny smell, Leo? Can you describe it?" "Like wet dog." A big, hairy, growling intruder who smelled like wet dog and was eating in the kitchen. Could it be an animal? A stray dog? The thought offered a different kind of fear, still a danger to a small child. Sarah updated the officers. Possible large animal in the residence. Child reports wet dog smell. The officers would need to adjust their approach. This changed things. The puzzle was getting stranger. Every detail mattered. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. The next moments would be critical. Sarah heard a new sound. Sirens, faint at first, then louder. "Leo, I think the police are outside. Can you hear them?" A small, hopeful yes came from under the bed. Relief, but anxiety lingered. The next moments would be critical. She heard muffled shouts. "Police, open up!" Then the sound of a door being breached. "Stay under the bed, Leo. Don't come out until they find you," Sarah instructed. More shouts, footsteps, movement through the house. Officers called out Leo's name, their voices loud but trying to be reassuring. Then, a different sound, a bark, a loud booming bark, followed by laughter. Sarah strained to hear. What was happening? The tension was unbearable. An officer's voice close to Leo's phone. "Well, hello there, big fella. What have you got there?" More laughter. This was not what Sarah expected. Relief started to creep in. The truth was about to be revealed. The mystery was nearly solved. An officer finally came on Leo's line, his voice calm and reassuring, cutting through the tension that had built up in the house. "Ma'am, this is Officer Miller. We have the child. He's safe and sound, no harm done." Sarah exhaled, relief flooding in, and her shoulders finally dropping. The fear that had gripped her heart began to melt away. "And the intruder?" she asked, her voice still tinged with worry. The officer let out a soft chuckle, the tension in the air easing. "Our intruder is about 150 pounds of fluff, very friendly and very hungry too." The family's Bernese mountain dog, Bear, had managed to escape his crate and launch a midnight raid on the fridge, leaving a trail of snacks in his wake. Bear had a notorious fondness for leftover chicken and cheese, and tonight he'd found the jackpot. The growling noises that had sounded so menacing were just Bear making happy, satisfied sounds as he munched away. The strange smell? Just a wet dog, after Bear had knocked over his water bowl and splashed around, leaving puddles everywhere. Leo's parents had only stepped next door for a quick chat with the neighbors, thinking they'd be gone for just a few minutes, certainly not long enough for any trouble. They were sure Bear was safely crated, but he was a known escape artist, always finding new ways to wriggle free. Leo, waking up alone in the dark and hearing all those strange noises, panicked and let his imagination run wild. His mind filled in the blanks with monsters and intruders, making everything seem much scarier than it was. The big, hairy description Leo gave was actually spot on, just not in the way anyone expected. The growling was nothing more than Bear's happy snuffles as he explored the kitchen for treats. The shadow that seemed so ominous was just Bear moving around, his large frame casting shapes on the walls. Sarah listened to the officer's explanation, a slow smile spreading across her face as the absurdity of the situation sank in. All that fear, all that tension, and in the end, it was just Bear, the family dog, on a late-night snack adventure. Sometimes the scariest mysteries have the silliest solutions. Leo was soon reunited with his frantic parents, who returned to find police cars outside their home, lights flashing in the night. The scene was tense, neighbors peeking from behind curtains, unsure of what had happened. Their terror turned to relief and a bit of embarrassment as they realized the emergency was not what they'd feared. The adrenaline faded, replaced by sheepish smiles and grateful laughter. Bear, the intruder, wagged his tail, completely oblivious to the chaos he'd caused. To him it was just another night, another adventure, and maybe a chance for a snack. Sarah, the dispatcher, hung up, emotionally drained but smiling. She'd braced herself for tragedy but instead found herself chuckling at the outcome. This call would stay with her, not for horror, but for the reminder it offered about the unpredictability of her job and the humanity behind every call. Things aren't always what they seem, especially through a child's eyes. What feels like a nightmare to a child can be something entirely different in reality. Leo's fear was real, even if the source was a beloved pet. His heart raced, his imagination ran wild, and for a moment, the world felt dangerous. This incident showed how quickly we jump to conclusions based on fear and partial information. It's a reminder of how our minds fill in the blanks when we're scared. Sarah and the officers had prepared for the worst, ready to face danger if needed. Their training kicked in, but so did their compassion. In the end, the threat was a four-legged foodie, more interested in leftovers than mischief. The only thing Bear wanted was a midnight snack. It was the best possible outcome, and a learning experience for everyone involved. Relief and laughter replaced fear, and the family hugged a little tighter that night. Emergency calls reveal human vulnerability and fear. They show how quickly our minds can spiral and how much we rely on others in moments of crisis. But sometimes, they also reveal the unexpected, the moments of humor and relief that follow the storm. The almost comical in hindsight. The stories that become family legends, retold with laughter for years to come. This call, about Leo and Bear, is a story about perception, fear, and the surprising twists of real life. It's a reminder that not every emergency ends in tragedy, and the importance of not always believing the first most terrifying thought. Sometimes a second look changes everything. Sometimes the monster in the dark is just a hungry dog, reminding us that even in our scariest moments there's room for relief, laughter, and a little bit of perspective.